Welcome back to the Mastering Real Estate Podcast. This is episode 27, and today we are talking to the incredible Brad Warren. Brad is a land banking specialist, which is one of the lesser known aspects of real estate investing. This episode is fascinating, especially if you are interested in learning about one of the truly passive ways to invest in real estate. Welcome to the Mastering Real Estate Podcast. This podcast is for real estate investors and professionals looking to take their real estate game to the next level. Each week, I review the industry's leading real estate books and break down the main lessons that you can apply to your life and business. Then, every other week, I review my own personal lessons learned from flipping over 100 houses and being a full-time real estate investor since 2018. Stay tuned each week so that we can all become masters of real estate together. I'm your host, Maura McGraw. I've been a full-time real estate investor since 2018. I've managed over 100 flips, founded and grew a real estate investment firm. I'm a licensed agent here in Alabama, and I live and work in the real estate industry every day. Today, I am pleased to introduce our special guest, Brad Warren. Brad Warren is a national and international speaker and coach. He's traveled to 19 countries and 27 of the United States for the past 40 years teaching business courses. He's coached 500 plus business owners, is the 2014 Bay East Association of Realtors Affiliate of the Year, and is the author of the book Just Sold, The Real Estate Professional's Guide to Selling More in Less Time. He's spoken at the National Association of Realtors in 2016 and 2017 at their conventions. And after 40 plus years as a business coach, Brad transitioned to a new career as a land banking specialist, helping investors build generational wealth by investing in land. Brad is now an expert in this little-known asset class of real estate investing, and I think you'll be very interested to learn more about this strategy. Brad Warren, thank you so much, and we are so happy to have you on the Mastering Real Estate Podcast today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Brad, before we jump into business and all things land banking, I would love to learn a little bit about you, your background, maybe where you grew up, and how you got into land banking.
How much time do we have? Because
we have all the time that you want.
Okay. So I grew up on Long Island, New York, in a town called Great Neck. Went to college, traveled in Europe for a year, backpacking for an entire year, and then moved out to California in 1975. Been out here since then. And how I got started in land banking, I do a quarterly net worth statement. And I started doing this in March of 1989 when I was engaged to my wife. I wanted to know what our net worth was when we started as a couple. And I've done it every quarter since then. And on December 31st, 2011, I looked at the numbers and I had a rude awakening. Let's put it that way, Maura, a rude awakening. The numbers showed me that my wife could retire by herself with all of her money. Together, we could retire using mostly her money and a little bit of my money. But if I was still single at that point and I was going to retire, I was around 60 at the time, I was only going to get by very carefully. In fact, I probably couldn't even retire. And
Wait,
that was,
first of all, I don't even believe you. You were 60 at the time? You look so young right now.
I'm 73 now.
Wow.
I was born in 51 and that was 2011. So I was 60. I was about to have a birthday I was about to turn 61 in January. And by the way, thank you for the compliment. But back to the story because my mind, I'll forget what we were talking about.
Okay, sorry. So you were going back to retirement planning.
That's okay. I couldn't retire. And that made me nervous. And so I called up my land banking friend. Her name is Marcella Silva. And in January, she came to our house with a laptop, just like a real estate agent would go to the kitchen table to present to a husband and wife to get the listing agreement and to sell the house. She came to do a land banking presentation, spent about an hour and a half with us. At the end, my wife goes, "No, thank you. I have my 401k. I deposit money into it every paycheck. It's matched by the company. I pick the mutual funds myself. They're doing very well. It's going up. I don't get this land thing, and it's 10 years and it's just too long. And she walked out of the room. I turned to Marcella. I said, I get it. It's the only way I'm going to have enough money to retire. Get me a property. So 2 months later, March of 2012, I got my first property. A year later, I bought a second. A year later, I bought a third. And all this time, in addition to investing, I was also becoming what's called a finder. I was finding people and referring them to Marcella, and I was making money on finder's fees, which was, I made about $10,000 a year for 5 years in a row.
Cool.
So that's how I got started. And then eventually my wife came to hear Marcella present again. This is like 3-4 years later. And the whole way there, Maura, in the car, she's going, I'm not going to buy. I think maybe I didn't quite get it, because you got three parcels. You go to the annual meeting. You got all your friends are investing. Maybe I missed something, but I'm still not interested. I said, fine, don't buy. Let's just go. We go. Very long story, very short. She listens to the presentation and she buys 2 properties right there in the hotel out
No way.
of the four that was presented. So that was number 5 and 6. Excuse me, number 4 and 5. We bought 6 more since then. We now own 11 properties ourselves. So
cool.
I have some skin in the game too.
Awesome. Oh, that is a very cool story. Can you tell us what is land banking? Because this is something that is not very commonly talked about in real estate investor circles.
Okay. So imagine the town that you grew up in. Let's say you lived there for the first 20 years of your life or so. And you're a little kid, maybe 5-6 years old. You're in the backseat of your parents' car. They're driving around and they pass by a vacant lot, and it has just a handwritten for sale sign and a phone number. And mom says to dad, gee, honey, we should look into that. Maybe we should buy that land. Maybe one day it'll be valuable. Dad says, sure, that's a great idea. And what do? Nothing. 10 years later, now you're like a teenager. You're still in the backseat of the car because you can't drive yet yourself. And you pass by the same lot, only it's not empty anymore. There's a building there, a shopping center, a movie theater, a church, something. It's been developed. And mom and dad are like, we could have made a fortune if we had bought that. Land banking is buying land, and here's the most important sentence, strategically placed in the path of growth, because if it's not, it will always stay just dirt. Strategically placed in the path of growth, holding, and in our company, we're very conservative. We tell people 7 to 10 years. So this is not for somebody that wants overnight success, cash flow, get rich quick. 7 to 10 years. And then your exit strategy is you sell that vacant land to the developer. You mentioned that your husband is involved in building houses. So in this case, it would go to his company because they need that 1 acre, and they consolidate it with 10 other acre parcels. Now they've got enough to build 50, 60, 100 homes or whatever.
Yes.
That's what land banking is. And I left a 40-year career as a business coach and got my license eventually and started working for the company because I just loved the whole concept.
Very cool. All right. So tell me a little bit about, could you tell me how your first deal went? So you said that when you were talking to Marcella, when you were planning your retirement, can you tell us about maybe your first land banking deal and if you still have it or where that is today?
I still have it. And it's been 12 years. And so some of my friends are like, land bank, you said 7 to 10 and you have it for 12. And I said, let me explain something to you. First of all, I got in on an incredible deal. There's 5 zonings for land. Non-residential agricultural is the cheapest. Residential, industrial, like warehouses, things like that. Commercial, so maybe an apartment building or an office building, and then mixed use, which could be like a whole shopping center with housing and stuff like that. I got in on a mixed use, which was very unusual for a first-time buyer. Usually they give you the bottom ones. And I said, I don't even have enough to buy that myself. I went in with 3 other people, which you're allowed to do. 4 non-family members can combine their money. So I got this mixed use property. And I bought it for $2.17 per square foot. That's usually how we evaluate the land. I know of a property that's less than a half a mile away that is selling for over $8.50 a square foot. So
Wow.
I know my property is worth at least 4 times what I paid for it. However, a half a mile on the other side to the west of my property, BYD, which is the Chinese electric car manufacturing company, which Warren Buffett, by the way, owns millions of shares or millions of dollars. He's a big proponent of them. They're building a second electric bus manufacturing facility in Lancaster, which is where my land is, a half a mile on the other side of me. Do you think that might have raised the value of my land as well?
Totally.
Totally did. And there's more, like a Ginsu knife. The city council, without me even asking them to do this, went ahead and rezoned from MU4, meaning mixed use 4. The 4 means the height level, 4 stories high. They rezoned my land to mixed use 5,
Great.
which means you can build another story. If somebody's building a hotel, instead of 4 stories, it's 5 stories. Do you think that land is worth 1x more value? Of course it
Of
is.
course.
So I know my property's at least quintupled in value, if not more. And
Cool.
it's just a question of waiting.
How do you know when it's time to sell? Do you just wait for people to come to you, or do you at some point list it, or how does that part work?
You said it correctly the first time. It's a waiting game. In this case, I'm expecting some kind of mixed use development, like a shopping center or something like that. They will knock on my door. They will say, "Hi, Mr. Warren, we see you bought this land for $115,000 and you bought it like 12 years ago. And it's really not worth that much. And you paid $115,000. We'll give you $130,000." I say, "Thank you. Send that to me in writing via email, and I'll get back to you." And I don't say another word. I call Valor, the CEO of the company, free of charge. We offer this to all our investors. Will give me what's called negotiation coaching. He will give me a list of questions to ask that developer. What are you building? How many stories high is that apartment building that you're going to build? Oh, we're 5 stories. When are you breaking ground? What else is going to go in that area? Oh, it's an apartment building, but it's going to be near a shopping center. Oh, I see. What have you paid other people in that area to buy their acre and a quarter? Mr. Warren, we're not allowed to divulge that information. Yeah, I'm going to go look it up. So I'm asking them all these questions, and they're going, "Mr.
Uh-oh.
Warren's pretty smart. He's not going to take 130. So the next email I get from them, it's 180. We want our investors to get 3 to 7x return. So that and by the way, I already know that somebody is selling land for 4 times. So they're not even close.
Yeah.
So I keep feeding them information that the CEO, by the way, the CEO may know of another investor from our company that's next door to me that's already been offered 800,000 for their 1.25 acres.
Wow.
Do you think that's useful for me to know? Heck yeah. Because when I get back to this development company, I say, "Oh, by the way, I just found out that the property contingent to my property is on the market and has an offer for 800,000 and you're offering me 180. Could you please explain the difference?" And then I shut up and I don't say anything. And now they're squirming in their seats. How did he find that out? Oh, it must be that company.
Yeah.
He's probably got the same, bought it from the same. Oh God, now we're going to have to offer him 8. No, I'm not even going to take 8. I'm probably going to take $1 million because you've been such a pain in my butt trying to
Yeah.
lowball me. I'm pissed off. I'm not going to sell. And I know they need my property or they can't build the
Whatever
building,
they're planning. Yeah.
whatever they're planning. So that makes our company very unique in that we offer this free coaching for as long as it takes. And some negotiations can go on for 1 or 2 years,
Oh, I believe it.
and sometimes longer.
Yeah. I totally believe it. So mostly people will negotiate their own deals themselves. Is that right?
That is correct. We do encourage them. I can't use the word advise. Apparently, that's a legal term, and I'm not a lawyer. We encourage all of our investors to seek legal advice when they get the contract. We can't say, "Oh, We do tell them this line should be crossed out, add this wording. We'll give them suggestions,
Yeah.
but we want them to get a real estate attorney that understands commercial real estate to go over it, because obviously the developer is going to write the contract in their favor.
Yes.
And we want it to be written in the favor of our investor.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, let's go back to the other side of the deal. So that was, now I understand how you sell. How do you find the land? Because, like you said, you're living in California, your land is in Lancaster. So, how does the other side of the deal work? How do you find this land? What are some of the things you've learned from doing these deals over time?
So I'm very fortunate. I don't have to do the research. We actually have it's called Research and Acquisition Department, several people. And all they do all day, in fact, what they're doing right now is you and I are speaking on this Tuesday morning. They are finding land that's vacant, that meets our criteria, which, by the way, is a set 16-point, we call it the 16-point analysis checklist. Every piece of land has to get 16 yes check marks or we reject it. And because of that high level of due diligence and risk mitigation, and when I say we, I'm talking about our company, which actually buys the land first. We
Okay.
always put our own money in first. We only buy one out of every 30 that we look at.
Wow.
We are rejecting 29 properties as not suitable for our investors.
Okay.
We buy that one. We then mark up the price because there has to be some cash flow to pay all these researchers and to give the company a positive cash flow and give the owner some returns. But it's still below market value by a little bit. So there's already built-in equity. And then we make that land available to our investors. One of them says, yep, I like that. It's the right price. We do my partner Marcella does a 30-minute, it's called a property profile. She does a 30-minute video that takes her probably 3 to 4 hours to put together.
Wow.
To show that property, what's located around it. We prove that it's in the path of growth by showing all the other developments within a 1, 2, and 3 mile radius. And then we offer it to the investor and they go, yep, I'll buy it. And then they buy it.
Awesome. And is there anything significant happening between the purchase and the beginning of the sales process? I know there's annual property taxes and whatnot, but is there anything else that's happening in the interim that people should know about?
If you're really lucky, it happened to one of Marcella's clients. They were offered the property. They had not even put down their deposit, and our company got an offer higher than the amount that they were selling it to the investor. But because of the high level of integrity that our company has, they turned that offer down. They sold it to the investor and then told the investor, oh, by the way, you've already got an offer for about 3 times what you paid. Here's the letter. It's up to you to negotiate with them. But we advise you that, not advise you, we are telling you that's probably a lowball offer. How much do I ask for? And then we'll give them some coaching and then they're off on their own to go. That doesn't happen very frequently, but that's about the only thing. Mostly you have to be very patient when it comes to land banking. We tell people 7 to 10 years on average. As you can tell from my example, I'm already past the 10. I'll give another example. One of my clients, less than 2 years, married couple, they actually own 10 properties themselves. They got an offer from an energy company, $2,500 to $3,500 per year for 30 acres for 35 years. Let's do the math. They're not going to take the 2,500. If the energy company was silly enough to put a range, of course they're going to give them the top. Why would they accept 3,500 times 30 acres is 105,000 a year for 35 years. That's 3.5 million and change. Plus, we encouraged our investor to add what's called an escalation clause to cover inflation. 2.5% to 3% is where it used to be 2%. Now it's 2.5% to 3%. So add that in, and it's compounded. So they're looking at 3.7 million, something like that. Their purchase price was $150,000.
Awesome.
They're going to recoup that in 2 years. Now, that's another extreme example of something happening way less than 7 years. So it's all over the map. So we figured out the average hold 7 to 10 years, and all you're paying is your property taxes, which are very low because it's vacant land. There's no building. So the assessed value is extremely low.
Cool. Are most of the investors is for most of them, is this a retirement play? And are they using their retirement accounts? Are they using self-directed IRAs or solo 401ks to invest? Or can you just talk about what, I don't know if there is an average client profile, but what are probably not, but maybe you could just talk
No,
about this might be right for, how
sure.
are they incorporating it into their either their portfolio, their retirement plan?
So you are 100% right on, Maura. Most people don't get it as quickly as you're getting it. But yes, there is no sort of typical or average person. They're all over the map. But generally speaking, I would say 70 to 80% of my clients and Marcella's clients use self-directed IRAs. It is mostly a retirement play because of the time frame. But if they're in their 40s and 50s, they can't touch that money for 20 years anyway, 10 to 20, 30 years in some cases. So they diversify. We don't want all their money. We just want them to diversify. Don't have it all in crypto or the stock market or mutual funds or single family residences, of which I own all of the above. Diversify. And so you diversify in land. It's definitely a longer term investment, but the returns are very lucrative if you're patient. And that's usually when people say, Brad, what's an ideal client for you? I'll tell you, they got to be nice. If I'm going to spend 10 years helping them negotiate and maybe have them over to my house for dinner, I got to like them. So they got to be nice. I don't like them, I don't need the business. They got to be patient. And I can find that out. One of the things that we do when somebody wants to invest with us, they have to watch. I'm not allowed to take anybody's money until they see Marcella's Land Banking 101 presentation. It's about an hour long. If they say, I don't have an hour, then this is not the right investment for you. Because if you don't have an hour to watch about an investment that's a minimum $25,000 to invest, then you don't have 7 to 10 years to wait for it to come to fruition. And I don't want you calling me up every 3 months. How's my land doing? How's my land doing? How's that? Just leave me alone. I don't need it. So
Right.
nice, patient, and a minimum of 25,000 investable. If somebody comes and says, Brad, I got all my money's in crypto. Great. When you're done converting it to US dollars and that money is in your bank account and can be used to buy, call me back. Oh, and by the way, here's a link to a presentation. You have to watch that first. After you've watched it and you've converted, because sometimes it takes 2 or 3 weeks for them to get their money.
Yeah.
So that's the process and how it works and what I'm looking for in terms of investors.
Cool. Are there any tax benefits or any other like hidden benefits of land banking that people don't know about or might be curious about?
I'm assuming many of your investors know what a 1031 exchange is.
Of course. Yes. Most of my listeners probably do, but there's probably some that don't.
So tax code 1031, the section in the tax code, allows a person who owns real estate to sell it, then replace that property with what's called like kind, meaning other real estate. So single family residence to a duplex, a shopping center to a warehouse, land to something else to land. And you buy at or above the price that you sold at, and you defer, not avoid, because Uncle Sam wants their money at some point. You defer your capital gains on that new purchase. And what we like with land is the fact that if somebody, let's say somebody bought a house for 100,000, sells it for 300,000, and they've only been able to identify a replacement property for 250. They've got 50,000 left over. That's called the boot, that at 50,000, and they'll owe Uncle Sam capital gains on the 50,000 unless they call us. Brad, I got a 1031 exchange going. I got my duplex identified for 250, but I need to fill in the other 50. We'll find them 49, 51, 52, somewhere very close, because we can find land anywhere from 25,000 to 2 million. That's our range. So we help 1031 exchange people fill in the boot. Other than that, for taxes, it's just like any other investment. You're going to pay Uncle Sam at some point, unless, by the way, with the 1031, if they keep 1031 exchanging it and
Defer
then
until you die.
and then give it to their kids. And now it went from a single family residence to a 20 unit apartment building, and it's 1031 all the way. They haven't paid Uncle Sam, and the kids own it. They're making 10,000 a month in cash flow. We're never going to sell the building. They never pay Uncle Sam.
Yep.
Until their children eventually say, okay, it's now worth $8 million. We'll pay Uncle Sam. We can afford it. And
Yes.
then we'll keep the rest and we'll go to the Bahamas and take a vacation.
Yes. Such a great, one of the greatest real estate strategies.
Yes, absolutely.
Are most people buying land in cash, or are they using leverage? How does that part of land banking work?
One of the slides in Marcella's presentation, I believe there's 10 different ways you can invest, cash being one. You can borrow from a life insurance policy and then pay yourself back. You could do a HELOC, which we don't recommend because then you're paying interest on the HELOC. IRAs, 401ks, dormant IRAs. What else? 1031 exchange. A lot of different ways that you can do it. I would say 70 to 80% of my clients are self-directed IRAs, and the other 20% are cash.
Very cool.
In fact, I'm in the middle of 2 transactions with one guy, and he's using his IRA.
Cool. Overall, so you've been in land banking now for many years. What are some of the things you've learned from being in the business? Maybe what are some of your favorite parts about land banking?
I love talking about dirt. When people say, so Brad, what do you do? I always go, well, I sell dirt. And they usually chuckle and they say, well, what do you mean you sell dirt? Do you like bags of dirt to help people pot garden and stuff? No, I'm a land banking specialist. And they go, land banking? What's that? They're now hooked. They've just asked me to explain to them what I do, and it's wonderful. So I love talking about it. I love watching. We have every other Tuesday evening, like twice a month, we'll have a 30-minute update from one of the regional managers. There's 4 regional managers. Marcella, my boss, is one of them. And they rotate. And they'll do a 30-minute free presentation only for investors on what's happening in the areas where we invest. For your listeners that can actually see this map behind me, this is a big map of California, and they see this white circle. That's a 60-mile radius around downtown LA. That's where we invest. People say, well, aren't you in Arizona and Nevada? There's cheap land. There's a lot of sun for solar farms. There's no infrastructure. There's no job growth. It's not a politically an environment that is, it's more hostile to business and development in some cases. So we have a list of what we call the 10 growth factors. They're all happening at the same time inside that circle. So that's where we're looking for the land. And that's where our investors are going to invest, not in downtown LA itself.
What are some of the things you've learned from being in the business, and what are some of your favorite parts of the business?
Yeah. So I mentioned the favorite parts. What I've learned is patience is not my strong suit. So I've learned a lot about being patient, both as an investor and also over time finding investors. This guy that I mentioned that's doing this now, I've been talking to him. It's been over almost a year and a half when he and I first met. And he was, I'm thinking about it. And the next conversation, my wife's going to use her self-directed IRA. I got to set it up, and I want it to be a Roth. And hopefully your people know about a Roth is tax-free when you sell, not tax-deferred. And then I didn't hear from him for 6 months or so. And out of the clear blue sky, he just emails me and says, okay, those 2 properties that Marcella just showed, I want them both.
Wow.
Okay. I had one guy, this guy, Tom, I'll just call him Tom. I don't even know where I met him. I didn't recognize his name. He calls me up after seeing one of Marcella's presentations. He says, hi, Brad, you don't know me. I've been following you for 5 years with this land thing, and I'm now ready to buy. And I said, who are you? Where did we meet? He says, I don't even remember, but I've been on your email list for 5 years, always looking at the program and the parcels in it. And he owns 2 properties now. So
wow,
it's just very serendipitous. And I like that. I wish it was more methodical, that I could, okay, do a podcast and I'll get 10 leads. It doesn't always work like that. I wish it did. But
well, sometimes you do get the leads, but you aren't going to hear from them till much farther down the line.
So that part is a little anxiety producing, is like, where's the next sale coming from? But I like doing podcasts. I love talking about dirt, and I'm a good salesperson, and I listen and we find out if it's appropriate. I've turned some people away. I've just told them it's not appropriate. One guy was older than me at the time when I met him. He was in his mid 70s.
Yeah.
And he was all gung ho and he was ready to do it. He's talking to his wife. That was Friday night. And he actually got the paperwork ready. Saturday, he called me back and I was like, he called back and said, Brad, we thought about it overnight and we realized we'd be in our mid 80s and probably couldn't even use the money ourselves.
Yeah.
And our kids are all set anyway. So I said, great, I'm glad, because I had told you 10 years, are you sure you want to do this? And they came to the realization it was not appropriate. So I've occasionally turned away a few people.
Yeah. That is very cool. You not only talking about dirt, but you must also like writing about dirt, because you've also written a book, Just Sold. Can you tell us a little bit about your book, what caused you to write this? And maybe you could just give us a quick summary about what it's about.
Sure. So back in the days when I was a business coach, which I had a career for about 40 years, I was a business coach and a trainer and a speaker. So most of my money was made getting on stages and doing trainings and things like that. And at one point I worked for the Fred Pryor Seminar Company, and I was teaching there what's called a time management class. So over time, I took a little bit of that material, but I modified it. I used my own stuff, things I had learned previously. And somebody said, Brad, you're a coach. Every coach has a book. You got to have a book. It's for credibility. You're not going to make much money selling it. Turns out I did do fairly okay selling the book, but I wrote this book called Just Sold, The Real Estate Professional's Guide to Selling More in Less Time. And it basically was my own 8-hour, and I don't call it time management, I call it activity management, because you can't manage time, Maura. If I said, Maura, please manage this 30 minutes, you'd go, Brad, how do I manage minutes? You can't. What you can manage are promises that you make to do something in a time frame. So I call it activity management. So I had a class, it was a full day, 8-hour, couple breaks and lunch. And it took people through everything I had ever learned about being more effective and efficient in planning your week, writing out your goals, delegating, how to overcome procrastination, how to run more effective meetings, anything that had to do with the use of time and how you utilize it. And I wrote this book. My coach at the time helped me write it and taught me what to do. And then I went and self-published it and started to sell it when I went to speak on the stage at all these different courses that I was teaching. And people were buying it. Oh, awesome. I'm not a real estate agent. Can I use it? I said, what do you do? I'm a CPA. I'm an attorney. I'm any white collar, or even actually blue collar workers could use it too. But mostly it was white collar workers that were solopreneurs that needed to manage their time and their activities better. And they would buy it and they write up little things, and I would use what they wrote and say, oh, this person said this. And actually the National Association of Realtors has it in their library and they sell it for me as well.
So cool. Oh, yeah. I'm obsessed with this. I love time management and trying to get as efficient as possible. Can you just give us maybe a couple of your favorite tips and tricks for optimizing your time management? Because I think everybody could benefit from that.
Absolutely. And for employees, some of it does. This is more for self-employed people, but employees can even use some of it, like running more effective meetings, delegating, things like that. But I would say the 3 things that I try to help people with the most is, number 1, you got to have goals. You got to know where you're going. If you get in your car and, okay, we're just going for a drive, then you'll just go for a drive. But if you get in your car and you say, okay, I'm going to New York City and I live in San Francisco, that's helpful. Now you know where you're going. Okay, so you got your end goal. You got Stephen Covey said, begin with the end in mind.
Yes.
You said, I want to go east from California. You could wind up in Miami. That's pretty far away from Manhattan.
Yes.
It's like 1,200, 1,400 miles away. So you got to be clear. So you got to have goals. They need to be written. They need to be written in a certain form that is specific and measurable, the old SMART formula. So that's what I tell people first, is know where you want to go. And Brian Tracy said, know where you want to go and then have everything that you do be in support of getting there. All right. Number 2, you got the goals. Now you need a plan of action. Written. Who will do what by when? Is it you or is it someone on your team? Is it your wife? Is it a partner, spouse, whatever? Who's going to do what? So very specific plan of action to get, in this case, as we said, to get to New York City. So I'm going to drive. I need maps. I got to check my car and get everything. I've got to make sure the spare is working and the oil's filled up and I got extra spark plugs and food and places to stop on the way and who am I going to visit? Blah, 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 blah. That's your plan of action, your POA, your plan of action. And the third, and what I consider the most important of the 3, is planning 1 week at a time. Most people can't think a year ahead, 3 years ahead, a month ahead. I finally realized 7 days. So I learned how to do this in October of 1982, probably before many of your listeners were even born. And every Sunday, I have not missed one Sunday since October of 1982. I spend 20 to 30 minutes planning out my week using what I call the 5-step planning process for goal accomplishment. It's actually one of the chapters in the book.
Cool.
And my coaching clients, I would teach them that process. And they sit down every Sunday and they plan out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, how much time they're going to spend on each thing. And then Monday morning, they wake up and they know what they're going to work on and they get to work. Now,
Cool.
Do they always accomplish everything that they wrote? No. If you can get 70 to 80% of your week to go the way you planned it, that is spectacular. Because obviously there's other people and they have their plans and sometimes you're on their plan and it takes you off of your own plan.
Yes.
So you got to account for that. But 70 to 80%, and I would credit that one thing that I've done every Sunday with almost all of my success.
Wow.
Just
That's
planning.
awesome. And sticking with it for that many years, that success has really got to compound over time.
Oh, yes. Amen, sister. It has.
That is amazing. That leads me to my next question is, I know that from your coaching career and now working with lots of investors all over the country and from your own career, you've worked with a lot of successful people. Are there any common traits or characteristics you've noticed among your successful clients or investors that you've worked with?
No one's ever asked me that before. They're all different. I would say they all have ambition. They're all smart. They ask a lot of questions. They grilled me before setting down 25,000 is the minimum. My biggest client was $750,000. It took hours. Marcella, I had to bring Marcella in because I said, I can't even answer all the questions.
Yeah.
It was several hours of conversation because that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a big purchase, 750. By the way, she should have closed, if everything went according to plan, she closed last month for 2.25 million. So she got 3x. But
Awesome.
I don't know. She hasn't let me know yet. But they're all savvy. They're smart. They're cautious. They do their due diligence. They watch the program. They would then ask questions based on that. They're good investors. They're smart. They know what they're doing.
Cool. What are some of the most important lessons that you personally have learned over the course of your career? If you had to give advice to maybe a younger person starting out in their career, is there anything that comes to mind or advice that you would want to give them?
A happy wife is a happy life.
Amen.
Okay. So first and foremost, guys, if you're married or dating, it doesn't have to be guys. I mean, there's same-sex couples, but make that person as happy as possible and you will be happy too. All right. So that's life advice. As far as business advice, I would say have your goals, have your plan of action, schedule your week, and get a coach / mentor / wise person, whatever you want to call them, either free or pay. Usually pay is better because then you've got some skin in the game. I've had a coach for decades, not the same one. I've had several, actually. I lost count. I've had so many. Marcella is my coach right now. I have a referral coach. Her husband actually coaches me on how to get referrals because I used to not do referral based. I used to just, every time I lost a client, I just went out and tried to find another one, usually from my speaking. Now it's all by referral. All of my business is, it's still from speaking. I do podcasts, but then I get referrals from that. So I would say, have your goals, have your plan a week at a time, and get a wiser person than you to guide you along the way and to hold you accountable. Because that's the person that we disappoint the most in life, I believe, is ourselves. We say we're
That
going to do something, and we don't do it. And unless there's somebody there that slaps you upside the head and say, "Hey, Brad, you said you were going to door knock, or you're going to do this, or you're going to do that, and you didn't do it. What's up with that?" Not like they make me into a bad person, but they hold me accountable. That is extremely valuable in life.
absolutely. That is great advice. Outside of work, when you're not land banking, what do you like to do? What are you into these days?
Oh, that is so easy to answer. Travel and Texas Hold'em.
Ah, cool. Where's one of your favorite places that you've traveled recently?
We love going to Cancun. We have 2 timeshares, so we go for 2 weeks a year. This year we couldn't because they were renovating. I've been to Tahiti 3 times. We love Hawaii. We go to Hawaii every other year for at least a week or 2.
Cool.
We have a bunch of timeshares. We go to other places. Oh, our company goes on a trip every year. This is June next month. Oh, it's coming up, and it's about 35 days from today. We are doing a river cruise called Gems of Southeast Europe, and it's down through Bucharest and Budapest and that portion of Eastern Europe. So I love to travel, and I play a lot of Texas Hold'em tournaments, both online and in person.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. One of my sayings is, if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing.
Yes, I totally agree. Tell us, where can people get a hold of you if they are interested in learning more about land banking or just about you and what you have going on? Where and how is the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Email. I'm not a texter. I don't give out my phone number. It's just my name. I got this email decades ago because I figured I wouldn't forget my own name. Brad@bradwarren.com.
Brad@bradwarren.com.
BRADWAREN. Brad@bradwarren.com. You send me an email, even on vacation, I will respond almost always within 24 hours. And we set up a Zoom. I'll probably send you the link if you say, "Hi, Brad, I heard you on Maura's show and I'm interested in seeing the presentation. I want to find out more." I just send them the link, and then I wait for them to get back to me because I don't chase people anymore. And they have to show some interest. They have to almost not beg me for the land, but they've got to show enough interest that it's worth my time to engage with them.
Right.
So they'll watch it and then say, "Brad, I watched Marcella. Oh my gosh, it's like drinking from a fire hose. She talks so fast. I took 3 pages of notes. I want to find out more. I still have some questions." Then I do a Zoom with them and I pre-qualify them. And then I introduce them to Marcel. We do a 3-way conversation. And then if they still want to buy after all that, then we start the purchase process, which we're not even going to get into because it's very complicated. Don't want to bore your listeners with that, but Brad@bradwarren.com, best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to put that in all the show notes and the description. But that is awesome. And could we do a book giveaway for our audience? I always love to do this when I have authors on. And what I usually like to do is on YouTube, I'll have people comment on the video and then we pick someone from the comments to give a copy of your book away.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I'll sweeten the deal. How about 3 people?
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
It'll be an ebook because
Cool.
postage and all that is just a pain in the butt, but I'll send them a free ebook. It's exactly the same as this, only they'll just read it on the screen. And you just send me the 3 email addresses and I will get that off to them within 24 hours of you getting that to me.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Brad. I've loved this conversation. I honestly learned so much from you about land banking. I know the audience learned so much also. So thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Mastering Real Estate podcast.
Thank you for having me. Very much appreciated.
Thank you again to Brad for coming on the podcast. What a great interview. And thanks so much to you for listening today. This podcast is made possible by Duratus Properties. Duratus is a real estate investment firm in Alabama, and if you are a real estate professional located in or around Birmingham, Mobile, or Baldwin County, we would love to connect and work with you. Despite the crazy interest rates, we are always looking for new properties to buy, and we always want to expand our network of business partners. So you can always shoot me an email at Maura@duratusproperties.com or fill out any of the forms on our website so that we can connect. Right now, we are actively looking for more properties to flip and add to our rental portfolio, so keep us in mind. This concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Come back next week to hear from Ashley Wilson, also known as Badass Investor, and believe me, she lives up to her name because she truly is a badass. See you in the next one. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. We are a new and growing podcast, so every rating, review, and share helps immensely. Also, make sure that you're following us on YouTube and social media. You'll get a lot more behind the scenes and content there daily. See you in the next one.